September 8th, 2024. Chandler Simpson steps up in the bottom of the first and starts his 107th game of the season with a single to right, before scampering back to first on back-to-back pickoff attempts, watching a pitch out go by, and then later swiping second, third, and scoring on a sac fly. This was just typical Chandler Simpson stuff. However, in this particular case, those two steals were his 100th and 101st of the season. Look, I don't mind modern baseball. The rise of analytics and the focus on the three true outcomes of homers, walks, and strikeouts doesn't bother me much. However, I would be lying if I said I didn't miss the slap-hitting speedster that's been somewhat phased out the game. Guys like Juan Pierre, Ben Revere, D. Gordon, even Ichiro, although I think he's too good to be lumped in with anyone else. And maybe more importantly, in terms of speed at least, Billy Hamilton. A guy who didn't quite have the bat to produce at the big league level, but leveraged his speed on the bases and in the field to carve out some solid seasons for himself, although his prime was short. It seems as all the premier speed guys in MLB today all have great all-around games. Bobby Witt Jr., Corbin Carroll, and Ellie De La Cruz for examples. And while that's obviously ideal, there's always room for an anomaly, and Rays prospect Chandler Simpson might be that anomaly. Okay. Who is Chandler Simpson? Chandler Simpson is a 24-year-old ball player from Atlanta, Georgia, who's bounced around from middle infield and the outfield. And after 2 fine years at UAB, Simpson truly broke out in the Northwoods League in 2021, teaming up with fellow speedster and best friend Victor Scott, remember that name, and hitting .378 with 55 steals in just 51 games, giving him momentum for his next college season that actually came in a different uni, as Simpson transferred home to Georgia Tech and made an impact immediately. Before we get into it though, let me clarify something quickly. For copyright reasons, I have to slow down all the clips by 5 to 10%, so just know that Simpson is a bit faster than what you're going to see here. But back to the video. In his first game with Tech, Simpson reached base 4 times, stole 2 bags, and scored thrice. And although that was a fantastic showing, his performance in the end of that series truly showed his game-breaking ability. Because in the first, he smacked a grounder back to the pitcher. However, with him busting out the box, the pitcher of course panicked and made an error. And once on the bases, instead of settling for second on this grounder through the left side, Simpson got on his horse and went first to third, putting him in a position to score the game's first run on a sac fly. Then in the 5th, after reaching on an infield single, he later forced a balk that led to him scoring again. But this brings us to the 8th. With the bases loaded, 2 outs, and his team down by 1, Simpson cracked a bases-clearing triple before adding a run of insurance on a wild pitch in an eventual win. And a few days later against Gardner-Webb, Simpson somehow snuck a pitch over the wall for a grand slam, which still to this day is his only out-of-the-park homer in an official game since 2019. However, those performances weren't against the best teams. Could he pull this off against a legit squad? Well, on March 5th against their rival Georgia, Simpson started his day with a hit to right, and despite the next hitter grounding one to short, he beat the throw to second with a head-first slide, meaning with the pressure of Simpson on second, the Bulldogs tried catching him with a pickoff, but instead, the throw got away and he moved up a base, so when the hitter chopped one to third, he broke for the plate, and although he seemed cooked, a high throw allowed him to score the first run. Now, is this a good base running decision? In a vacuum, no it isn't. But it's clear his speed overwhelms fielders, and if it works, right? Later in this game too, Simpson laid down a bunt and beat it out despite Georgia playing it very well. Something he replicated the very next day too when he reached on this drag bunt to first. Even with an injury seeing him miss a month, this is basically how Simpson's year at Georgia Tech went. He had a D1 leading .434 with 27 steals and 64 runs scored, with one of those runs coming when Simpson inexplicably scored from second on a routine fly ball to center against Pitt. And while you could doubt this playstyle's ability to translate, the 2022 draft saw something interesting, because Simpson not only got drafted in the 2nd round, but he also got drafted by one of the most forward-thinking franchises in the Tampa Bay Rays, which means they may see value in this skill set that other organizations don't see yet. And based on his minor league numbers, they may have a point. In 2023, he batted .294 over 115 games, with 0 homers of course, but he was able to steal 94 bags, a mark that was tied for the minor league lead with who else but his close friend Victor Scott.
My best friend Chandler Simpson.
Yeah, Vic, that's my best friend.
And we do everything together. So like we bowl, play ping pong, so everything's like super competitive between us.
A lot of competition between us two for sure.
I never really even realized how close I was to 100 until kind of people started reminding me about it. I was just seeing it as I'm just trying to beat my best friend, man.
But funny enough, it was Scott who seemingly won at first.
So I had him by 1. I had 95. 10 days after the game, they took one away.
It was an error. They took the 95 off.
I was so blown, man. It was crazy.
And when he told me, he was like, "Twin, I ain't I don't have 95. I got 94. I was like, damn, what? But I was like, I was trying to be like, I felt bad for him, but I was like, ooh, okay, bet we tied. He ain't beat me.
And then we started having a debate about like who was more impactful. He was like, I had more and less games. Like it went back and forth for at least like a week. And then we finally set it up on it and was like, look, we both had great seasons, man. Like you did your thing this year. I did my thing. Now I'm probably going to go beat you in bowling.
Those are clips from the Called Up podcast hosted by my colleagues at Just Baseball, Jack McMullen and Aram Layton. It's a show about all things prospects and it's available wherever you get your podcasts. So check it out. Regardless, it was a fantastic year for the both, and it allowed Simpson to jump into the Rays top 5 prospects list according to Pipeline. But he was about to take another crazy leap. With Victor Scott making the MLB roster out of camp, Simpson had no competition in the stolen base department. But it probably wouldn't have mattered if his friend was there anyway, because in 2024, Simpson hit a mind-boggling 355 with 160 hits and 104 steals in just 110 games, only striking out 44 times in 504 plate appearances. And this season also included his only pro ball homer on June 7th. But of course, it came when the left fielder had trouble with one of his base hits, and his speed allowed him to race around the bases for it inside the Parker. Simpson became the first minor leaguer to steal 100 bases in a season since Billy Hamilton and Delino DeShields did it in 2012, with DeShields barely exceeding 100 and Hamilton grabbing an insane 155? Is that correct? A fun stat, because Hamilton was in the Rays system at the end of 2023, and Simpson actually got the chance to shadow him for a bit down in AAA. For context though, remember that Simpson pulled off this feat in just 110 games, so if you put it on a 650 plate appearance pace, he's grabbing 134, a mark that's higher than Ricky Henderson's AL/NL record. And over his last 162 minor league games, he's stolen 147 bags at an 87% clip. And for context, the most steals in MLB this decade is Ronald Acuna at 143. Okay, let's put his entire minor league career into perspective to this point. Fangraphs has minor league stats tracked back to 2006, and Simpson's 206 steals in 233 games is the most among any player with less than 300 games played by over 30. But honestly, just focusing on the bags does Simpson a huge disservice, because his success with his hitting style is a massive outlier. Since 2006, 54 hitters have taken 1,000 plate appearances in the minors with at most 1 homer. And among those guys, Simpson has the best average in OPS by over 20 points, the best WRC plus by 11%, and the 3rd lowest K rate. A spot at the top he maintains if you expand it to 123 guys with at most 3 homers, and he's still in the top 3s once you push it to the 247 players with at most 5. And look, is that stat a bit goofy? Sure. I wouldn't blame you if specific stats like that aren't your thing. However, I do think it at least shows that the success Simpson has found with his hitting style is kind of unprecedented. And to give you a more straightforward one, among the over 5,000 minor leaguers to take at least 1,000 plate appearances in this span, Simpson has the 8th best batting average. And the only player in that top 15 to have less than 20 bombs is Luis Ariz. Scouts used to joke that on the 2080 scouting scale, he had 10 power and 90 speed. And honestly, I think they're kind of right. He also balled out in the Premier 12 tournament, batting .459 with 9 steals in 9 attempts, impressing his manager, former World Series winner Mike Scioscia, so much, he told him, "Stay true to yourself. Don't let anyone change you." But let's go to present day, where Simpson's skill set is kind of breaking MLB teams in spring training. Against the Yankees, he chopped a slow roller to first, and he got down the line so fast, it might have well been a hit to right. He also later roped a triple-digit exit velo knock to right, and of course, he stole second. Against Boston, he not only easily beat out this chopper to third, but he just missed doing it again later in a very routine play. However, he really stole the show when he robbed top Boston prospects Christian Camber and Marcelo Meyer with 2 great catches, especially the one against Meyer, as the ground he covers here was kinda nuts. So what can we expect from Simpson? Well, I don't know. I think it's really easy to call this a play style that won't translate to the majors, but when you consider the low K and whiff rates, I don't know if it's that simple. Billy Hamilton, for the speedster he was, struck out a decent amount, same with Delino DeShields and Simpson's close friend Victor Scott. Which brings us to an interesting discussion. Should we compare him to other players? Simpson has cited D. Gordon as a huge inspiration to him growing up, but the guy in the modern game he looks at the most is Luis Ariz. Chandler Simpson had a 94% in-zone contact rate in 2024. Marks only touched by big leaguers Mookie Betts, Steven Kwan, and Luis Ariz in 2024. And his out-of-zone contact rate was still 82%, a mark that was only outdone in MLB last year by Ariz. And I know you cannot compare one-to-one minor league stats to MLB. I'm just trying to give some frame of reference. But back to Simpson, he stated that Arise has really helped him with his hitting philosophy.
Like, I love Luis Ariz, and I look at him a lot, and not so much model my swing, but I do a lot of drills that help with my swing, because like I want to be able to be as great of a hitter as him. So like just being able to keep my head down the ball and things like that, and stay on balls and just be relentless at the plate, just knowing that I'm somebody that got to get on base and I can't strike out a lot. So just making something happen at the plate, make my speed work for myself.
However, regardless of your opinion on Arise as an overall player, it is undeniable that he's a productive hitter year in and year out. If Luis Arise could field and run at a slightly below average rate, he'd be a way less polarizing player. And Simpson has the elite bat-to-ball skills with generational speed on the bases that is also helping him develop quick in the outfield. So, is Chandler Simpson the baseball version of Stephen Curry with a 40-inch vertical? Well, that would be a pretty bold take, and obviously, it's more likely that he isn't. But if he is able to get on base at an above-average clip, something he's more than equipped to do compared to others with that speedster label, those God-given wheels could help him build out a very successful big league career. Chandler Simpson is a paradox, and that might be the first time I've ever used that word. And I think the ending of this Ken Rosenthal article about him explains it perfectly. Let others scoff at Simpson's throwback style. The Rays see it as special. We've gone so far the other way in this age of analytics that a playstyle that was phased out of the game because of an organization like the Rays is now being seen as undervalued by Tampa Bay. However, regardless, I am almost selfishly rooting hard for Simpson. One of the most beautiful parts of this sport is the diversity of playstyles. And perhaps the potential success of Chandler Simpson can help bring this playstyle back to the game and help keep executives open-minded to other unique players.